There are ways that we can be deliberate, that we can be decisive, and that we can be very precise on all of our shortcomings and turn them into long run distances of becoming one who is triumphing. The deepest part of what lacks in a person's way of seeing themselves get through just this life daily and consistently, you have to remember one thing. Pain really is in the mind than physical pain. The reason why I'm speaking about the deep layers of the mind is because that's where all of our suffering, all of what happens to us is mental. When you deal with somebody that has hurt you in a way that is psychological, it is much more painful to get rid of the psychological mind trauma, the mind effects of that trauma, of that hurt, of that pain, than it is a physical pain that someone may do to you, or if you injure yourself in a physical way. The more pain that is affecting the mind is what actually leads a person to the worst of themselves breaking down in every level, letting themselves fall, letting themselves go completely. And pain in the mind comes from so many different variables. When you think about how people could really just mess your mind up because we're in such a fallen world, I see people do the most horrendous type of deeds and how they actually affect people, and how people are just used and hurt and psychologically just made into what is of somebody else's power to dominate and to just use whatever in any which way that they can to manipulate just that other person and to destroy a person from the inside out. We see this through so many different psychological type of bullyings, injecting and creating different settings that have to do with setting people up and abuse physically, especially like if you think of someone who has been viciously assaulted. Let's say, think of someone being raped. Think about how psychologically trauma of the effects that person has to live with. That lasts even longer than the physical act of that person. Of what they've done to that other person in the moment. That is just catastrophic, long-lasting to the person who's been a victim of rape, assault in such a very harmful way to where their body is damaged. And I really feel the heartening of people that just carry all forms of just wanting revenge, wanting anger to just come out of them. I feel for these people that have been in induced comas. I'm not speaking even necessarily physically about someone in a coma where they're not conscious. I'm talking about spiritually, where they're in their body, they're walking around, but they're not conscious of themselves as far as who they are. They're just conscious of them walking around in pain, walking around in mental anguish, suffering. They're walking around and they're not themselves. They're far gone. They're at the point of where they're not functioning in a normal cognitive setting. They're just living, breathing in their pain, meaning that Their body may be present wherever they are, but their mind is not present in where their body is. Because you take a look at what this world that is not guaranteed, what could happen to you, what could come across your path that could almost take you out. There are just so many types of variables to where you could easily be deleted, and it's because of society. You know, one thing I will definitely say that you have to really, really just be very wary of is television, social media, everything that you come across and that you see that's televised is propaganda. At least a majority of all things that you watch is propaganda that is a very controlling mechanism that could really create your life to be caught up in a way where your mental capacity of just truth could be stolen from you. Your innocence of just your natural ability and awareness and critical thinking could be stolen just by whatever narrative that you see people are pushing. People off of the streets that you actually come in contact with, they'll push a narrative to make you believe something outside of yourself. They'll push an agenda in order to find ways to break your psychology. And what they'll do is they'll also find ways to pin things on you, to set you up mentally, psychologically, verbally, physically, and to assault you spiritually. These are all different types of gang stalkers. These are all types of onlookers, and they appear to be normal, regular people, but they have a deceiving coded, encrypted way of them that is a hidden message of them wanting to take your identity, to steal your concentration, to steal something that is real and authentic that is of you, by trying to trap you into their world that is of misery. Those who suffer, those who have everything inside of them that is wrong on every level, mentally and literally. Every person that has been at the hands of being in any type of ongoing suffering, they want to take their suffering, their pain, their angst, their disadvantage, and they want to throw it and to have someone else become their angst, their pain, their disadvantage, their inability to be set apart. The reason why, when you see a lot of those that are criminal-minded individuals, and they commit, you could say, all of the worst crimes that you could think of: human trafficking, murder, violence on brutality type of levels. You think of those who are being extorted, those who are being trafficked. You think of all the different crimes of just what you see humanity on a global level, or just people on individual levels, what they do to each other. It's because people who are suffering, they want others around them to feel their suffering, and they want to be able to watch what is suffering from their own view of seeing somebody else suffer, because it's a reminder of them seeing their own demise, seeing them completely be wiped out. They want to see what it looks like for somebody else that's in front of them to be wiped out, so that they could have a perspective on what their misery looks like outside of themselves. And they want to see what death looks like in so many ways outside of themselves. So they inflict all types of trauma, all types of institutionalized opiums to the mind. And they create cancer cells just by wanting people to build up with stress and just different frustrations, different settings of them going through pain from another inflicting all of that pain onto them. And no one knows really, the truth of what is in this world that is all around you, that you can see anymore. Only a few people know the truth, and those who speak the truth about people and their conditions and this world, people who are awake to this world, they're villainized, they're criminalized, because they're not going along with the institutions that are wanting power to go around. And power and money corrupts, and whatever is power is by all means what justifies. And I pray for the people who are really suffering at the hands of themselves and at the hands that has been by others that have created suffering for those that whoever they are suffering. I pray for those even that are creating and they're the ones causing what is the suffering. I pray for the victim and the victimizer that they get set free. I pray for the victim to be set free from the abuse, the hurt, the trauma, the pain of injustice that was done to them, and the one who has committed injustice. I pray that God forgive them. I pray that the victim forgives the victimizer, and I pray that the victimizer realizes the pain that that person is causing onto others and gets delivered and turns from what they're doing that is of evil. I pray that the evil that has been done to people ceases away from them, that they are not psychologically traumatized, yes. And this is only by the power of God that could unify and bring people out of the threshold, the thresh web, I'm going to call it, of all of this level of mental, physical, of injustices that we commit to one another in this world. And it's because those who are in positions of power, they create it where there's a conquer and divide. They create revenue to make off of people being completely divided. I mean, everywhere you go, whether it's in the libraries that you go to hospitals, you go to public vicinities, you go to different jurisdictions, you go to wherever that is government buildings or government-owned run institutions, all the people that you see in these facilities, they are agents, and they're working as being assigned in certain positions to where it's all about keeping a certain tracking of people that enlist themselves to these institutions, and they are in these specific facilities because of things that they are trying to use for themselves. And whenever you go to public libraries, the people you see that work at the front desk of these libraries, they work for the government, they work in these institutions to where they're part of the system of control that is to tell you how to think and what to do and what to achieve through their lens, and they create these levels of where everything is designed to keep someone not to think outside of themselves or to think in a way that is going to be their own way of surviving outside of what the system produces. See, if you think in a way that is of yourself, if you rely to where you could come up with critical thinking skills to build yourself into super wealth, and you don't do it through colleges, you don't do it through going and reading books that are at these libraries. You find ways of self-development, you find ways of how to survive that leads to you building a level of knowledge of yourself to be able to start a business, to start a way of becoming an entrepreneur. And if you do it completely off the books, they will penalize you. They will find ways to pin things against you. They'll set you up. They'll frame you, and they'll use false narratives against you. All because you're not playing according to the general conventional programming. And I'm not speaking all against schools. I'm not speaking against all that has to do with libraries. I'm not speaking about these things just on their own. I'm speaking about really who's behind them. And this has a lot to do in so many ways of censorship. I mean, from what I heard, there was a video clip of where they're banning the Bible in Canada. I don't know how true that is, but you can't practice freedom of speaking about God openly or witnessing. I mean, it's getting to the point where anything to do with you speaking about God or speaking about the realization of this world, and you're speaking out against things that corrupt this world, that corrupt general influences, that corrupt general principles of what is humanly of dignity and solidarity. If you speak against the corruption that's corrupting our society, corrupting our youth, corrupting our children, they will silence you, and they will turn you into a criminal, and they will make it where the world will turn against you. And this is why we have to really stand heed in the things that we believe is true, and to not turn ourselves to the deceiving comforts of what people will offer you to keep quiet or to keep silent. People will hold on to their job more than they will hold on to following Christ. People will hold on to their money, their bank account, more than they will hold on to what is of the truth, what is of the light that exposes darkness. People are more afraid of losing what they have in this world than actually the fear of God himself. People don't want to think about reality, what is really hard-hitting. They don't want to think about inevitable truths of their mortality. They don't want to think about one day them standing before God Almighty and facing him as a judge, because God is going to judge this world. And it doesn't matter if you believe in God or don't believe in God. You can believe, whether it's in religion, you could be someone who says that they're an atheist. I don't care what you say you are. The truth is that you are going to give an account one day. I am going to give an account one day. This world is going to be destroyed. And all these people that have jobs, that are employed, that have families, that have wealth, that have fortune, it's all going to be taken away from them. Because the reality is, you don't own anything. You don't own your property. You don't own whatever 401ks you have. You don't own any commerce. You don't own your house. You don't own your property, because it could be taken away from you easily. They can come and they could snatch everything that you possess right now. Your Social Security, that's not who you are. It's just a number. And they could change that number and make it into something else. They have the power to control you, to lock you into a system where they could cut off all of your supplies whenever they want. They can cut off your income. They could shut off your water, your heating system in your house. They can take your house from you at any given moment. And what are you really living for? Are you prepared to see that the grass is not greener on the other side? So many people want to chase after having a bigger house, bigger wealth. They want to chase after what is consistent with lavish acquiring. And they want to chase after more of what this life is of them being driven by financial success. But yet, they spend their whole life trying to get these things, to acquire these things. And some may acquire and get these things, but it doesn't bring you closer to truth. It doesn't bring you closer to God, of you being in God's will. Do you know what the will is for your life? Do you know what God's will is for your life? You got to ask yourself this question. You got to stop living in what is abstract, and you got to face the facts. You got to face truth. Am I chasing something just to distract myself? And am I just chasing things without looking at the value really of what it brings? And I pray for people who are rich. I pray for people who are poor. I pray that there's a way that all of us can do some good for this world, for others, and that it be in the will of God's will. You see, if we're given resources, we are to use those resources in the way that is going to bring about people coming to the gospel, coming to God, using those resources in a physical way to bring people out of the depths of suffering, if we are going to use resources for anything. You know, I'm just here because I know that time is short and that time waits for no one. So get right today before it's too late to do so.